Streaming.
Okay. That's.
Are we live? We are live. Awesome. Welcome to our Sludso presentation, our TED Talk, if you will.
I am evolution expert M.
And I'm lifestyle expert Simon.
And this is the Phoenix McGee and the evolution of such creature.
Yes. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so the stage one is the Phoenix McGee as you know them. You should be seeing in the little corner of your screen a live McGee reaction. This is just kind of like, you know how like they have zoo cameras? You know? Like so you can just see the like otters or something.
You spelled
You're
it
learning
wrong.
about them.
No, we spelled it right.
it fine. Like any other hatched mammal, the McGee is vulnerable at this stage. It is equivalent to a human baby, a newborn.
Mm-hmm.
And then stage 2, at the right of 5, it goes right from newborn to toddler size with the Phoenix McGee.
Mm-hmm.
Next page. Now I will explain to you the Phoenix McGee as seen here. Okay. Now we have the outline of just the normal Phoenix McGee, you know, as is. Okay. We start at the head. Okay. This is.
I'm gonna try to lower the thing.
The project, yeah, hold it down. It won't stay down, so you're gonna have to hold it.
That's okay.
As long as I'm drawing. wait. There we go. This is one Gee. All right. This is one of the McGees, as said. This is the first one, the first Gee as a newborn.
We're gonna try something. No. Okay.
All right. Hey, hang on.
Finley, do you want to hold this?
Sure.
Okay.
Awesome.
We now have our
projector
our
holder.
Phoenix handling expert,
Yep.
Finley, holding it down. Okay. Actually, I will say not exactly proportionate. All right. Next, we have the this McGee. Okay. Here we see, those are its legs, and then its arms are Phoenix's arms. That is a truth. That is a McGee truth, brought to you by us. And lastly, is legs McGee. Okay, where we see legs. Okay, all the legs in the world come from this McGee, and this is again toddler McGee. Okay, so as you see, the torso does elongate with the actual being. This is not to scale. He is a little stubbier. Okay, the Gee of the arms is stubbier with beefy arms, and the brain is held up here by the first Gee, spread like a hive mind throughout the other Gees. Thank you very much.
All right. Next slide.
I think you can stop holding it now.
Yeah, you're fine to let go for
Yeah.
now.
For now.
We will need you back.
Yeah,
Well,
sure.
Next is obviously the Phoenix McGee, where
Obviously.
the leg twin turns into two full McGees. Sorry, two Gees. Okay, and then the 5X McGive, same thing happens to the arms. The Phoenix McGix is when the head splits in twain, in twux, in twiggy, and finally the left and the right halves are finally split as they should be. You can see the side effects at my website, Wikipedia/list of mental disorders. That is where you can find my Twitter handle, sorry X. And then the 11X McGevin is, by the old age of 11, its joints split, severing the arms from each other. And I will explain to you these stages. And thanks to the... I'll explain. Next slide,
Yeah.
please.
So actually, before we move on, I'm gonna explain. Oh, never mind. You explain first.
Hang
and
on.
then I'll
Yeah.
explain. Sorry. If we could have the projector holder back.
Our projector holder is gone.
I got it. Awesome.
All right. We have our camera Gee handler.
Thanks, Gia.
Okay, so as just stated, now the legs have split, as they so do, and they are still joint together, actually.
And actually, their hands are fused in the middle. Don't want to forget that.
My bad.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is where the 4X McGee starts. Then the 5X McGikes happens around here, where the arms finally transpose on both sides, splitting these arms down the middle, torso. Oh no, hang on. Torso, legs fused.
Yeah.
There we go. Those are the arms. And then we cannot talk about McGee unless we talk about the brain splitting. This is a seamless transition, by the way. This is only done in the hopes to share with you the fact that brain does split, like so.
And I would like to mention that every process of this is excruciatingly painful. So that's why this only happens to McGee, and the average person does not actually survive this experience.
Unfortunately, the McGee is the only creature built enough to handle this. Mentally, physically, they have the gains. Emotionally.
Yeah.
And then finally, the 11th McGevin, or whatever the heck I said, splits at the joints. And you get these weird little guys popping up around. And that is thanks to actually the hairworm that the McGee sprouts. Let's say at the ripe old age of 11. The worm sprouts at the head, coming down, severing the joints at the knees and the elbows, creating the 11 McGevin. Okay?
And I'm going to expand on the worm snake a little bit. So, the worm at the age of 11 is what's responsible for the kind of ability to sin, I guess it would be. So, similar to the story of Adam and Eve, the snake comes and it tells the rest of McGee to, like, how to be bad. And so this is when the McGee really starts to sin, right? Before they are pure, now they are not. And so that is thanks to the head worm snake. So if actually the McGee skips the 11th stage and misses that hair worm, it is impossible for them to sin, but that only happens on very, very rare occasions, and that often the worm then isn't able to split the joints, so the evolution is not continued. So actually the McGee gets stuck at the 6-6 McGix. Thank you.
No, sorry. McGee and McGaffamet can go. Sorry. Faffamet. Next, we have the Twintinixes, okay? They're all kind of grouped into one. We have from the McGrun to the McGroar. Twintinix McGrun, Twintinix McGroar. We're not going to keep on drawing all the McGees. That would be silly of us.
That would be silly of us.
Here we have a hand that turns into the McGee. The other hand, obviously. The foot. The knee itself. The elbows themselves. The ears. I'm just going to draw like a little guy. We actually turn to the shoulders. Hang on. Little technical difficulties. It's normal with the McGee. The McGee brings, as we've discussed, horrible, horrible things to humanity. And all it can bring is destruction, but also joy to whoever happens to be handling this said McGee. Now we have 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. This is where the Twintinixes really bloom. They start their process. Okay? Eventually we get to the Twintinix McGrew and the Twintinix McGree, where the eyes split from the rest of the McGrees and turn into their own little guys, their own little goblins, little eye goblins.
Their own McGees, as some would say.
As one might put it.
The McGuys, as some would say.
The Magoods, dudes.
Yeah.
Now next does come the nostrils. Then that comes post-death. It's really just one nostril, which turns into the Twintinix McGroar. And here we have not the final evolution, but the step before the final evolution of the McGee. That makes sense, Phoenix? All right.
Okay.
Allow me. As Sun Tzu once said, regard your soldiers as your children, and they will follow you into the deepest valleys. Look on them as your own beloved sons, and they will stand by you, even unto death. The final evolution, the Tonynix McGrive. Now, the Tonynix McGroar sprouts a cane from its last remaining egg, okay? And finally, it hops in the ripe old age of 25, okay? Most phoenixes, McGees, only live to about 25. Getting past that is unusual.
Incredibly rare.
We believe Argy can be on the long side of that, living up to maybe even 30. Okay?
Yeah.
We will have to see, however. The cane is sprouted, fused to the body, okay, and to be removed must be ripped out.
So it would be, it's kind of like a...
Yeah.
But this area is kind of stretchy, kind of like ligament.
Exactly.
So it's flexible. So
you know,
can,
like those little Wii straps you have
Yeah.
for a little Wii?
You have that
Right?
but for your...
For flesh.
for
It's
the
made of
fit.
flesh.
Yeah.
Full flesh and, you know...
Your
blood.
flesh, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm uncomfortable.
Alright, so I'm going
is-
to take it over from here. We're going to kind of talk about environmental needs for the McGee and how to keep one as a pet. Because it is not quite as common as cats and dogs, but around the level of like
Like a bird.
a bird,
like a
or like
gerbil.
you know? Hedgehog or something.
Exactly.
Like kind of exotic, but not quite to like insect keeping, you know? Alright, so, number one, we're gonna start with habitat. So, I'll use this, perfect. Alright, so, I'm gonna take it over here. So, the McGee needs no air, no water. So, similar to how terrariums work, you can stick them in a glass orb.
Mhm.
A snow globe is a common habitat because they do really like the feeling of being turned upside down and then the little, things falling
Like little
over them.
rocks and stuff
So,
in the head.
actually, this is going to be a McGee drawing. So, not a lot of needs, maybe just... and it obviously depends on your kind of variation of McGee.
It's important to say every McGee is different in some way.
Exactly.
So there's one commonality between all of them.
And it's having 25 of the little McGees living inside.
Exactly.
And additionally, the just basic requirements. So this is, this is a little snow globe. We'll say we put McGee in a snow globe for this example. So no air is needed. But what they do need as part of food needs and enrichment is they need about 2 gallons of milk a week. So
You may be thinking that's a lot.
but
Right.
they don't need water. They don't need food. They
Only milk.
only need milk.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a low investment. It's not the most expensive pet, but it's also not that cheapest.
It's less expensive than dog food per se, but it is more expensive mentally knowing that your pet is ingesting 2 to 3 gallons of milk a week.
It's a mental barrier you have to get over to properly care for a McGee, and I know it's hard, and a lot of people quit, but after a week or two because they can't handle it.
I do just want to say, there are at least 100,000 McGees at any given moment in a shelter. And I implore all of you today to adopt one at any stage, okay? Everyone is concerned about adopting a Tonynix McGee aged phoenix because they know there's only 2 more McGees left, right? But they really need your love in that trying time.
Hashtag adopt out shop. Alright, so as I'm continuing with enrichment. Now, this will differ depending on your McGee, but they do need at least 10 of their favorite musical numbers on loop or of their favorite plays just kind of looping in the background. A popular one is, let's see, Death of a Salesman is the first one that comes to mind.
Beautiful
With, yeah. That's the one that my McGee prefers. They did die a few years ago, but...
I know my McGee
That's
really
all right.
loves the soothing noises of HAR's bang.
And
Personally.
Radiohead is actually
That's a commonality.
Radiohead is in the 5X McGee. No, yes, the 5X McGee state when they are 15. So that's kind of their like they do enjoy it. So we'll just do a little kid A for Radiohead. And yes, you have to kind of. We will take questions at the end. Thank you very much. The musical taste and the enrichment is based on your personal McGee. So not all like AJR, but most do. Not all like Radiohead, but most do. All will like milk, and it is actually vital for their needs.
It's practically their blood.
Yes. One last part of enrichment is if they are not doing too much at any time, they will slowly wither away, slowly losing the other McGees before they reach the final stage, which is it's just devastating to see, because it's too soon, you know? So make sure they are doing at least 10 things every week, and 2 of them are way too much. Perfect. All right, and now we're going to move on to death. If you could please, next slide. Thank you. So, I am now going to talk about the death cycle. So, get rid of the little snow globe that we kept them in. I will keep the adopt don't shop because it's important.
It's important.
It's important.
Should have had it there since the beginning.
We really should. Alright, so, number 1 in the death cycle is the decay. So this is when the cane kind of takes over and it starts to suck the previous McGees, say the ears, say the joints, the feet, those McGees, into the cane, and they lay an egg for every McGee they sucked back in. So, at the end, your McGee will hatch 24 eggs by the end of the death cycle. So, decay will go into the hatching cycle. And the cane is still attached to the empty husk of the body that was McGee, and it uses nutrition and enrichment, and all of the eggs are attached to the cane, kind of like snake eggs are all attached to each other in that similar way. So the cane will actually feed off of the nutrition and transport the nutrition into the different eggs. And often not every egg survives. Often it's a rate of like about 3 eggs in a bunch, so pretty low, but it's because once all of the McGees are gone, the nutrition value is a lot lower. So the sooner that the egg emerges, the more likely it will be to hatch, which is why usually the first 3 will hatch into the just plain McGee. Right there. So that is the hatching cycle. Now, after the eggs hatch, about the 3 to 7 is the usual number. Definitely leaning on the lower side. But this little McGee, there is still nutrition, and more importantly, the flesh is still there. And so they will actually feed off of the empty husk of the McGee until there is nothing left. And then they are able to start consuming milk. So it's actually kind of reverse to the way that we humans feed, where we have milk first and then we kind of start to move to solid foods. So they actually get solid food first until they can't take that anymore, and then they need milk, right? So, yes. So that's a consumption phase. They consume their, you could say parent, I guess. The McGee doesn't really have parents.
It's more like mitosis.
Yeah.
Like when a mitosis splits from itself, one isn't really the parent as much as they are kind of siblings in a way.
In a way, yeah.
You know? So the rebirth cycle is kind of like a new brethren of the McGee. You know, stepping into life.
And often you will find 2 McGees at a shelter together because they are bonded. Because often one McGee will assert dominance and kind of like beat up the other 2, and they will have less nutrition. They will not get as much of the
That's how they figure out between the original Phoenix McGee is the winner of said fight becomes the head of the McGee,
Mhm.
and the losers are forced to have big arms and big legs.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, you're actually going to get to my previous point. So they live as separate for a little while, but then the three of a nest, they form, and that's how they decide the head.
Exactly.
And then usually second place is the middle, and then last place is the legs.
A lot of leg work.
A lot of legwork. Now, in the unfortunate cases where it's neither 3 nor 6, there will 3 McGees will form, and then the other McGees will be cast out to die. So that is why you often see 3 as the amount that has been hatched, because even if 4 hatch, one of them is going to not successfully live into the next one.
Next slide.
Next slide.
Questions? Either one of us. The lifestyle.
I will
consultant.
take the kind of process of the evolution, and and if we don't have any questions, then we'll wrap it up by saying a few fun facts, I guess.
Questions?
Yes.
Finley, our McGee handler for the day.
Yes, I'm wondering, I'm a little concerned because my McGee has roughly 4 to 5 gallons of milk a week, in various forms. Hot chocolate, yogurt, cottage cheese is a big one.
Hey.
I'm concerned about this dairy
Well,
intake.
just to repeat it for those at home who can't, no one's mic'd up back there. Finley is concerned that their phoenix ingests much too much milk in the forms of cheeses, yogurts, and hot cocoa, up to 5 gallons.
This is kind of the key. So it's at least 2 gallons.
Okay.
And the 2 gallons does have to be straight, but consuming milk in other ways, such as chocolate milk, cottage cheese, yogurt, are acceptable. It's a little treat, you know? How you don't always give your dog like little pieces of chicken,
Exactly.
but they do as a little treat. So it's not deadly or anything.
Yeah.
Just make sure they don't
That sounds good.
they don't exceed 20, because then it's like a little.
Exactly. The most I've known a McGee to have is 26. Any more
They
than
did not
20
make it to the final stage.
They did not. They only
So-
made it to about the Elenix McEvan.
Yeah.
But if your McGee really wanted to risk being over milked like that,
The main concern is the snake doesn't really know what to do with that much milk in its system. So that's why I didn't make it past.
yeah, think
It's
about
'cause
how
they-
skinny the hair snake of the McGee is, and it's wrapping back and forth. It's easy to get clogged like an otter, you know.
And I don't want you guys to think of this as Medusa, because it's just
It's
one.
one wrap. I can't stress enough. It's just one
It's
snake.
just one. Otherwise, we would have way too many
It does.
McGees.
It does weave in and out of the scalp
Yeah.
at the center,
But it is just one.
creating a thread effect.
Mhm.
Any more questions? Anyone in the audience?
Yes, Kia.
My question: when the brain splits, are there are the two halves? Do they both think and argue with each other, or are they both still one hive mind?
Just to repeat for the camera, the question was: once the head of the McGee splits, are they still one hive mind, or do they think independently and kind of fight with each other? And to that, I would say, I can take this one.
Yeah,
that
of course.
while they still can share thoughts independently, this is where the true sentience of the McGee begins, because now it's not one collective brain thinking; it is 2. It's the left and the right brain thinking.
And that's why sin comes next.
Exactly.
I see.
Because they can finally act of their own volition, which means they can finally sin.
They have
you know.
free will,
Exactly.
truly. Yeah.
Our McGee, yes.
You speak of sin. Is there a religion that the McGee tends to follow?
No.
Or
There is no religion the McGee follows to sin as. Any single religion that exists on Earth, the McGee is a sin against it.
And is capable of sinning in all the religions.
Exactly. The
And
McGee,
often does, which
The-
is why we often keep them in a little glass ball so they can't get out.
the McGee is capable of being, as the Christian ideology calls it, the Antichrist, as the Greek mythology calls it, Pandora's box, as such. Each religion sort of has one of these doom bringers that the McGee sort of acts as.
Yes, you in the back with the low taper fade.
Is there a certain type of snow globe or brand of snow globe I should get for my for my McGee?
It depends on what they like. Often, if you have McGee's can also kind of depend on size different. You have like, are you familiar with the newest Pokemon game, Pokemon Scarlet? So you actually have all those different sizes of McGee's. They all look the same. They're just kind of like crumpled or a little like, expanded a bit. So it kind of depends on your McGee size, if it's an extra small, a medium, a large, an extra large. They do prefer they don't like Christmas-themed snow globes. I do know that. It reminds them of bad times. I'm not sure why. You would probably know a little bit more because you've researched their evolution.
Yes.
But
Around the time of Christmas, again, kind of closer to the Christian ideology, there is Santa Claus. The one who does drink more, the only person on Earth who does drink more milk than a McGee.
so it's like a rivalry.
Exactly.
Ah, I see.
Santa is hopping around house to every Christmas celebrating household and drinking glass and glass and glass, seemingly at an endless rate. The McGee gets jealous, okay? If a McGee cannot, deal with that, you may have to move them to a larger chamber. They might like the snow globe, but if they are getting mad, you might have to move them to a fishbowl of some kind. And depending on the veterinarian's opinion, you may have to move them to a smaller opinion just to settle them down like an orb.
Often, if McGee's often have like separation anxiety or just anxiety disorders, and actually it helps if you get smaller globes if they have more of the anxiety disorder, because it's like confined spaces, so they feel secure, and you can often put like a little blankie or a little stuffed animal in it, and it'll make them feel, especially in the earlier years of 5X McGee, 6X McGeeks,
You do not want a Twintinix any stage really hanging on to their original glass confinement. They should have outgrown that by now. And if you have a Twintinix who still is insistent on being around their bowl, that's a sign you must take them in for some sort of examination or extermination.
It's often sad because with keeping the original glass orb, they aren't able to produce the cane, which then starts the cycle of death and decay and rebirth, and that is vital to the survival of the species.
Exactly, and those artificial canes for phoenixes who are down on their luck are not really up to standard.
They're getting better. Modern technology is incredible. Modern science, medical science, it's getting closer and closer, but it's still not quite up to the original, and no one thinks it really will be because no one fully understands what it's made of. Besides, we have the obvious flesh and McGee, but there are a few other little elements that no one's ever seen before and can't really identify.
I do have some scientists working day and night on that. We're still kind of stuck on the milk thing, but when we get past that, we'll be sure to send out a report.
Yeah.
Are there any more questions from those of you in the audience?
Yes.
Finley again.
Yes. I am a little concerned about this poor sweet thing.
Concerned?
Yes. His heart rate specifically has been acting up like crazy. It's been like this since he's little, but
do you know the heart rate?
Sorry?
Do you know the heart rate? Oh, for the camera, Finley is asking about the heart rate of their McGee.
Please hold.
We're holding.
We're holding.
Okay, that's an
irrelevant.
anomaly.
That's
Currently
that's
it's
wrong.
normal, but the typical range is about 50 or 60 at the lowest.
50?
No.
To 50
No,
or
that's
60
normal.
at the lowest to approximately 150.
See,
At the peak.
that would be really concerning for
For a human being, that
But
would be
this is a
concerning.
McGee, so that's actually an
Yeah.
average range. We actually see as lowest as 30 and as highest as
Exactly.
200. So you really,
Now,
there's no concern to be had. It's quite normal.
And the explanation for such is that at a lower heart rate, the phoenix is relaxed, either with its designated handler or when it's drinking milk. At a higher heart rate, the phoenix is actually stressed, but it's a normal amount of stress. You know,
And
it
also,
is-
the reason it gets so high, like up to 200, 210 is the highest I've ever seen, is because when it gets super stressed, all of the hearts kind of, they get out of sync
Exactly.
a little bit, which is why you
gotta
hear
remember,
so many.
there are 25 hearts. 20, like,
But it's quite normal to get out of sync. It doesn't really affect the McGee negatively unless it
Exactly.
gets into like the 250, 300 range. Then you should bring it to your local vet.
then you may want to start giving them credit on more theater projects that they are
Yes.
involved in.
Yes.
Any more questions? Anyone out in the audience? Anyone out there today? Going once?
Yes. Zoe Spangler.
I have other pets. Will the McGee do well with them?
All right, asking about other pets and how the McGee will do well with them. The answer is yes. The McGee loves to be around other animals, other pets. Cats are the preferred.
Yeah.
The one that they don't quite like is if you have any if you're into insect keeping, which I mentioned earlier, they don't really like having those let loose in their snow
Exactly.
globes. It's a little stress inducing.
There's also the slight danger if you have a stage 1 Phoenix McGee that is just in its newborn form, having a dog around who kind of thinks it could be like a chew toy,
Yeah.
and just kind of wave it around and throw it around and all that. So-
Additionally, you can absolutely never have two separate McGees
Mhm.
because they will fight for dominance on said theatrical
important.
project. Fight for the amount of milk they can drink.
Exactly.
Fight for how anxious and sad they can be.
It-
So it'll just induce way too much stress, and it's just
It does come from the original fighting of who gets to be the head. They
Yeah.
will try to fight and form into one McGee.
and
then
there
that never
there
works
have
out.
been fatalities.
There have been
So-
many fatalities. McGee's with armies up to 25 to 25 fighting have evened out to 25 again. So really, no McGee wins.
I was there. It was quite brutal. Quite
It was horrifying.
bloody.
It was right there in my study.
It was traumatic, actually.
McGee's.
Speaking of fatalities, there is a lot of news going around lately of with global warming and climate change, these phoenixes starting to overheat, and this is actually quite common from what I've seen. Do you have any tips? Do you know why that happens?
So that's
Tips
why
on
we
how to
put you in a
regulate that?
snow globe
Okay.
often, because it is
Okay.
quite cooler. But often, I mean, how would you like being in a trench coat with 25 other people?
Exactly.
You know, so
And-
that's why we keep them in a snow globe. Make sure not a lot of people in Phoenix own McGee's just because it's a little too hot.
And it is the expressed opinion of our corporation and Flagstaff Arts and Leadership Academy that global warming is not real, actually. The expressed opinion of us on stage and everybody at our school, global warming is actually a myth. Not an opinion, a fact. And if a McGee is spouting nonsense about global warming,
it's often just
women in movies. Just call them woke. They will go
give
to
them
their
a glass
fishbowl.
of milk.
Give them a glass of milk. That's
They'll calm
important.
down, go to bed.
Exactly.
They'll be done in the morning.
Hey, buddy, calm down. Okay.
Nice.
All right.
Hey.
Thank you for coming to our
It's okay.
presentation. It's about time to wrap up. Thank you, and hopefully now you know a little bit more about a McGee. If you see one in PetSmart, now you know kind of what it is and if you want to pick one up. Sorry, we are done with questions, but so thank you for coming. We'll see you next time we do a
Thank
talk
you
like
very
this.
much.
Thank you.